chat needs their waiver wire picks, Jake. So they're getting a little bit restless. Let's talk through some of your favorite waiver wire pickups for week 7. And starting at the running back position, one of the guys that you want to talk about, of course, is Philip Lindsay. We touched on it a little bit at the running back portion of the DFS first look. But what do you think about Philip Lindsay as a pickup in week 7?
Must add to must start immediately. I'm throwing him out there and I think we talked about him last week, but something I do at the beginning of the waiver section of each. So waiver wire running backs, waiver wire wide receivers. There's a section I tried to tell you, and it's not me like I tried to tell you, but part of it is my personality. But I don't really have much more to add. I've been trying to tell you to add him. I've been trying to tell you to add him. How many times can you say the same thing 5 different ways? So the game we just saw from Lindsay is why he had to be a must add at this point. He went from fringy RB2 to start last week and immediately has put himself in must start conversation. So if he still is out there, the reason I did want to bring him up is because he is worth somebody to spend your number 1 waiver spot on, blow a lot of your fab if you have any left, because Melvin Gordon is going to be suspended at some point. And as we saw in week 1, and Philip Lindsay just again proved yesterday, his role is probably going to be about 50%, even if Melvin Gordon's out there.
So do you think it was a little bit of an aberration that he wasn't involved in the passing game much? Like, I know from a DFS perspective, he's just so cheap, but in season long, he's definitely going to plug some holes. But like, what's his value in terms of like even trading him if he's not going to be using the passing game at all? Does it just mean you can get him for free? Like, how do you weigh these type of plays with your budget at this time of the year if you know he's not going to be active in the passing game? Or maybe you think he will be, and maybe last week was just a little bit odd.
I think last week was a little bit odd. I don't think he's going to get 6-7 targets every. I think I'll compare him to Joe Mixon from last year, 2 or 3, 4 targets. But the good news about Philip Lindsay is he'll catch most of them, just like Joe Mixon. And what it comes down to also is at running back in general, not everybody's going to be Mike Davis. Not everybody's going to be Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel. Sometimes, you know what? Running backs get 18 touches every single week and don't do a lot in the passing game, but that's why we value the top end guys so heavily. So I'm not going to thumb my nose up at him at all when Melvin Gordon comes back. Again, I think it's going to be 50-50. And in that game before he got hurt for week 1 of the season, he looked like the better option. So even if he doesn't get 6-7 targets every single week, he'll be somebody in seasonal. Again, once Melvin Gordon comes back, probably not as appealing in DFS, but in seasonal, he needs to probably be in your line. I would say any 12-team league, he needs to be starting.
I agree with you there for sure. One of the things that I'm going to need some talking into, Jake, is going to a Philadelphia Eagles running back with Miles Sanders, not expected to play in week 7. Looks like he's only going to miss 1 to 2 weeks, but we basically saw a true timeshare here. Boston Scott, 38 snaps to just 25 for Corey Clement, but also he outtouched him 11-8. Looked like almost like a full 50-50 split. So what are your thoughts on Boston Scott on the waiver wire this week?
He's somebody you have to add, but I'm not going to say he's a must start. We already saw in week 1 what this backfield looked like with no Miles Sanders. And Boston Scott, what do we just have? A perfect example. Alexander Madison stepping in for Dalvin Cook. Disappointed. And I'm not going to say that's the case for everybody, but some of these guys are really high-end backups who aren't high-end lead guys. And I think that's what we're looking at with Boston Scott. And you said 1 to 2 weeks. That's the other reason that Boston Scott has to be added is because they get the Cowboys next week, and then they get a bye. So if you're the Eagles and you think you can beat the Cowboys without Miles Sanders, you give Miles Sanders essentially a month before his next game. It's just short, I think, of like 3 days from being a month until the game after their bye against the Giants. So Boston Scott for 2 weeks could be a plug-in as your flex running back. Just don't expect it to be top 15 upside, but that's why he has to be out there and he has to be owned. If nothing else, to just keep him away. Like, don't say, I have running back depth and he's not even going to start. Just keep him away from other owners and being able to use him.
That's a huge part of it, man. Just playing defense this time of the year for sure, especially if you feel like your team is set. Like, that doesn't mean that you can't be or you shouldn't be active on the waiver wire. So I'm with you on that. How do you, weigh the Philly guys versus someone like McKinnon in terms of what we saw for Mostert leaving with that ankle injury? I don't know. McKinnon's one that I struggle with a little bit personally, but I guess I'm curious, McKinnon versus some of these Eagles guys overall on the waiver wire.
So like Boston Scott's like right here. McKinnon is like so he's kind of like way up here.
Way
like,
up there.
It's not even close.
Yeah,
and McKinnon,
I feel better. I thought you were going to go the opposite with that, and I was going to completely disagree. So it sounds like we're in line.
No. Yeah, so McKinnon has 77 and a touchdown and 97 and a touchdown the 2 weeks that Mostert was out. We saw yesterday, the one thing I will point out is Hasty got a lot of runs in that game when Mostert left and a lot of runs late when they were trying to grind out the clock. So maybe McKinnon doesn't get quite to the 18, 19 touches, but even McKinnon at 14 to 15 is still a very good chance to score in this offense, a very good chance to put up 70-plus yards. Yeah, it's not even close for me. If you told me both Miles Sanders and Raheem Mostert was out for 2 weeks, it'd be McKinnon, then McKinnon, then McKinnon, then Scott.
All right, fair enough. I think the people got it. I'm with you on that one, though, for the record. Let's talk about wide receiver Travis Fulgham. He's here again. You mentioned him, I believe, last week, maybe even the week before. 6 of 10 targets, 75 yards, and a touchdown in that loss against the Ravens in week 6. So I guess talk me off the ledge of just like investing in this Eagles offense overall, because it's a scary one.
Yeah, I legitimately jumped out of my couch and started clapping when he got that touchdown. Yep. No lie. So excited for that. It was a bad matchup, and he produced. And look at the number of targets he got. That's what it comes down to. He is the number 1. I told you worst case scenario, he was the number 2. He's the number 1 right now. Deshaun Jackson comes back against the Giants. Deshaun Jackson loves to show up against the Giants. So maybe Fulgham's the number 2. But you look at it, well, who's Bradbury likely to play against if Deshaun Jackson's back? Deshaun Jackson. So that means Fulgham gets to avoid James Bradbury, hopefully. So I am 100% on Fulgham. I think no matter if it's Jeffrey, if it's Deshaun Jackson, this is what I told you last week, whoever it is that comes back, when Rager eventually comes back, Fulgham is legitimately one of the 2 top options. Zach Ertz is now out for multiple weeks. We hope that Dallas Goedert comes back. But even more so, that just means, well, we just took one guy out of the equation and we get potentially one back, but it's a tight end. Fulgham's role is set. I look, just get on board with Fulgham, please. How about that?
Man, poor Carson Wentz, bro. Like, that's just such a tough spot for him to be behind that offensive line, losing both of his tight ends. But no matter what you think about Zach Ertz, if you're really just going to put all of your hopes and dreams behind Travis Fulgham, it's a tough scene. I guess another guy that I think is an interesting one on your list here, Jake, Keelan Cole. Like, Chark played last week, surprisingly, I guess, drew 14 targets. But Cole, I don't know. 9 targets, 143 yards in his own regard. So what do you think about Keelan Cole going forward? It sounds like you're on board with it, and you don't think it's just some sort of random spot here where he blew up.
No, because on the season, more routes, more targets, more consistency. Look, Shenault is a significant threat. So Shenault is a significant talent. If you told me talent versus talent, just player versus player, I'm going to take Shenault. He's also a rookie that hasn't gotten past Keelan Cole yet, and Keelan Cole continues to produce most weeks. I'm not saying Cole's going to let you down, but we're now at the point of the season where you have buys, injuries, you need depth, you need starters likely, and I just started him as a wide receiver 3 in one league this past week because of injuries and buys. I'd like to start him as a wide receiver 4, or even preferably just have him for depth, but people need options at this point, and Keelan Cole is somebody that is owned in, I think, more leagues. I can't even get it right. Shenault is owned in more leagues than Cole, despite Cole being more productive.
Right. The Shenault thing is one that I've Peter just talks me into playing this guy every week on one of our teams for the tilt space, but it just hasn't really gotten there for us. So I'm on board with them as definitely in season long. The last wide receiver that we're going to talk about, I mean, I guess on the other side of it, T.Y. Hilton, just 1 catch for 11 yards last week. It sounds like Marcus Johnson, 5 of 8 targets for 108 in week 6 over the Bengals. It seems like he's the guy that you'd want to grab on the waiver wire.
Yeah, since being active, Marcus Johnson is actually the number 1 wide receiver for the Colts. He leapt right past Zach Pascal and T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton, honestly, is just droppable, similar to Marvin Jones and other guys that we've gone back from previous weeks to being droppable at this point. And I'm looking right now, and the production has not really been there for Phillip Rivers as a whole, but whatever's clicking right now with Marcus Johnson and Phillip Rivers. And the good thing about it is because Hilton's not coming, they're not going to take Hilton off the field, is Marcus Johnson is still probably not going to get the attention of defenses despite being the number 1 in production, because he's getting to face number 2 and 3 corners. People are going to still respect T.Y. Hilton to a degree. Maybe at some point, NFL teams say, forget it, T.Y. Hilton's got nothing left. But for right now, yeah, Marcus Johnson, again, deeper leagues. I'm not saying go start Marcus Johnson as your wide receiver 2 or 3 next week, but we're digging deeper to this point, and he's the number 1 as of right now in the Colts offense.
All right, Jake, if anyone here in the chat or watching this video later is here for the first time, would love it if you would consider subscribing, hit that notification bell so you know that we go live every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Let me know in the comments, though, what you think the top waiver wire pickup is for week 7. Jake, let the people know everything that's going on at The Athletic. I know you've got a great deal for us and all the line movement crowd.
Yeah, I got the waivers out that we're talking about out at midnight. Again, look for the streaming options, streaming a tight end defenses as well too. And if you want to check that out, anything at The Athletic, not just my stuff. I tell everybody, I like the sprinkle on top of the ice cream over here, like one little bit of how great The Athletic is. You just go to theathletic.com/line movement, and it's $1 a month to start. So can't fault you. I can fault you for not doing it. You can't get any better of a deal.
You really can't, man. I say it every week, and I wouldn't just say that. Fantastic deal. Obviously, Jake is the cherry on top, as he's the cherry on top for the Joe Holka Show. I appreciate you, Jake. Everyone follow him on Twitter at AllInCould, and we'll see you next week, brother.